Revealed. 7 divine steps to make heavenly decisions in life's supernatural uncertainties. Sarah's life spun like a whirlwind the day she learned about the 7 divine steps. The air thickened with holy anticipation. Something exciting was coming. Her heart raced with each passing moment as she sat among her church family, surrounded by the flickering warmth of candles that whispered divine promises. The pastor's words echoed like thunder, filling the room with life. She felt the Spirit moving, guiding her, a supernatural force compelling her to surrender. It was not long after that her husband James lost his well-paying job. Shadows loomed over them, clawing at their peace. Bills piled up like fallen leaves in the autumn wind. Despair began to crack the facade of their faith. Yet, amidst confusion, a divine whisper urged Sarah to gather her friends and pray. They encircled her small living room, kneeling on the worn couches where laughter once rang. And then the unexpected happened. As they prayed, the air shimmered, and a soft glow enveloped them. It felt as if heaven had cracked open, pouring out blessing. One night, overcome with emotion, Sarah clutched a worn Bible in her trembling hands. Flickering candlelight danced on the pages, illuminating ancient verses. "Trust in the Lord with all your heart," echoed in her mind, and tears streamed down her face, hot with hope. The community measured their faith in prayer, and their hearts intertwined like strands of a web. The more they prayed, the more Sarah felt weight lift off her spirit, like being released from invisible chains. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. A week later, temptation clawed at James. An enticing job offer glimmered like a beacon in the night. But the role came with strings that threatened their values. Conflict warred in Sarah's heart, twisting like a storm inside her. But decision time loomed like a looming shadow. Meanwhile, additional sorrow came knocking when Sarah's mother fell gravely ill. Uncertainty clawed at her soul. Would she crumble under pressure, or could she still lean on the promises of God? In her darkest hour, Sarah found herself on her knees, bare and vulnerable. She cried out, "Lord, I need you. Show us what to do." In that moment of raw honesty, an overwhelming wave of peace washed over her, like soothing rain on parched ground. The room felt charged, alive. In that sacred stillness, clarity surged forth, a prophetic word that calmed her swirling doubts, promising restoration and healing. As news of her struggles spread through the congregation, they gathered around her family, their prayers rising like incense to heaven. Each plea echoed with hope, reverberating through her spirit. Miracles seemed possible, pushing through the veil of despair. But could their faith withstand the relentless waves of uncertainty? Would they hold on to the 7 divine steps amid the storm? The air crackled with questions, heavy with anticipation. With hearts intertwined in prayer and eyes fixed on divine hope, they glanced ahead. Could healing and transformation be around the corner? As each day passed, the atmosphere thickened with expectancy. Sarah, the unwavering mother, wondered what lay just beyond the horizon. What heavenly miracles awaited in the unfolding chapters of their extraordinary journey? Days turned into a blur, each moment marked by fleeting hope and troubling doubt. Sarah often found herself staring out of the window, watching the world go by as if it were untouched by their struggles. She clutched the worn Bible close to her chest, as if it were a life preserver in a chaotic sea. Each page was a sanctuary, a reminder of God's promises etched in her heart. In those quiet moments, she couldn't help but whisper prayers, little petitions that soared toward the heavens. James was fighting his own battle. The job offer gnawed at him. It danced in his mind like a mirage, tempting him with the lure of financial security. But every time he considered accepting it, his heart ached, reminding him of the values they had built their life upon. He wanted to provide, but at what cost? One night they sat together, the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air. Sarah looked deeply into his eyes. "Sometimes the hard path leads to the grace we need," she ventured softly. James nodded, emotion washing over him. But what if it's the only path? It was a question laced with fear and vulnerability. They prayed together that night, huddled in the dim light of their living room. As they bowed their heads, their hearts began to beat in unison, a rhythm of faith igniting between them. Soon, tears fell like rain, washing away fear as they released their anxieties into the hands of God. Then came the news that shook their world once more. Sarah's mother had rallied, showing signs of improvement. A glimmer of hope lit the darkness. With every update, Sarah felt the shadows that had weighed her down begin to lift, surrendering to the light. Encouragement from her family and church community flowed like an unshakable current, binding them in a network of love and prayer. Yet challenges still loomed. Amidst the healing, James faced pressure from colleagues, whispering words that echoed danger, a compromise of integrity in exchange for success. The temptation grew heavier, casting a weighty shadow over the joy of Sarah's mother's recovery. Could they remain steadfast in the face of such trials? One evening, Sarah gathered a few close friends for another night of prayer. Each person entered her home with open hearts, eager to support her in faith. They formed a circle, hands clasped tightly together, sharing their burdens and praising God for even the smallest victories. The atmosphere was electric, the air thrummed with anticipation and purpose. 3 simple words pierced through the noise: trust His timing. Those words were a balm, soothing their troubled spirits and lifting them to new heights of faith. The night unfolded like a beautiful tapestry, woven together with heartfelt supplications and praises. As voices rose in harmonized worship, Sarah felt an unprecedented sense of belonging and divine connection. It was as if heaven opened its ears, listening intently to the cries of her community. In that moment, she knew change was on the horizon. Visions of what could be flashed through her mind. Her mother restored, James walking in integrity, their family standing strong amidst the waves of uncertainty. But what terrifying tests would await them? What would it take for their faith to thrive against all odds? As the gathering ended, hearts were light, but a heaviness lingered. Sarah could sense that something extraordinary was about to unfold, and deep down she sensed a crossroads approaching. What divine surprises awaited just beyond their fragile victories? Would faith withstand the ultimate test? The anticipation hummed like electricity in the air. The journey was far from over, and so many questions waited to be answered. Days turned like pages in a book that had yet to find its ending, a narrative still unfolding in surprising ways. The air was thick with expectation in their little house, and Sarah felt it in her bones. Each morning brought with it a quiet stillness, a moment to lean into the presence of God. She would sit with her Bible, often tracing her fingers over verses that had been her comfort in storms, feeling the warmth of His promises resonate within her. Meanwhile, James wrestled with time, both the clock and his conscience. The job offer, like a shadow, loomed larger as days passed. Discussions with colleagues became heated. Each dialogue felt like a tug of war between ambition and belief, and he worried about losing sight of who he was. So one evening, he took Sarah's hand, bringing life into the dim room. "What if this job is God's plan?" he asked, his voice low and uncertain. "What if it's right in front of us?" "Sometimes the right path isn't the easiest," James replied, her voice steady but gentle. "We need to weigh our choices against the Word, not just our needs." They settled into prayer, an anchor amidst the swirling thoughts, bringing forth their fears and desires, only to find a stillness in the chaos. As the days slipped into nights, miracles took shape in unexpected ways. Sarah's mother, her health reviving, brought laughter back to their home. The sound was like balm, soothing the heartache that had seeped in. Even as they celebrated, Sarah felt an undercurrent of tension. Would it last? The temptation of better days seemed to dare them, whispering questions of worthiness and faith. Community gathered around them, offering encouragement. One afternoon, as ladies from their church congregated for tea, an elderly woman with age lines deep as rivers gazed at Sarah. "My child, remember faith is more than words. It's action. It's a compass. The Lord is guiding your steps." Those words followed her like a serene echo, filling her with warmth and resolve. In the midst of joy, James faced a decision point at work. A colleague presented him with a golden opportunity, an enticing project that promised promotion. However, whispers of doubt clouded his heart. Would success mean turning away from his values? He found himself in the break room, shoulders heavy, scrolling through responses of approval on a glowing email. Yet the screens faded, and he closed his eyes to seek God's guidance. "Lord, what do you want from me?" he prayed silently, longing for clarity. Returning home that evening, he shared the good and bad with Sarah. Her eyes glistened, filled not just with concern, but with understanding. "James," she began, her heartbeat syncing with his, "let's take this to prayer. We need to discern what God wants, together." They sat side by side, a united front against the chaos. The weight of their prayers hung in the air, drawing nearer to an answer. Softly, as they bowed their heads, a gentle warmth wrapped around them, echoing a divine promise: trust and wait. They clung to each other as tears of hope transformed into tears of release. As the days unfolded, deeper revelations awaited, their hearts hopeful yet cautious. The ground felt like it was shifting beneath them, and Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that pivotal changes loomed on the horizon. But what awaited them as they took these steps? Would they find the courage to remain steadfast? What divine revelations were soon to emerge? The journey ahead felt fraught with uncertainty, and as they whispered praises into the night, the flickering candle cast shadows of what was yet to come. With the dawn breaking, the morning light poured through the window, splashing warmth onto the worn wooden table where Sarah sat. The air felt electric, charged with the promise of a new day. She pressed her palms together, closing her eyes, and whispered a prayer of gratitude. Each breath filled her with hope, a reminder that God was present, guiding them through both mundane and monumental moments. James woke with an unsettled feeling, the echo of unanswered questions still rattling around in his mind. He had replayed their discussions about the job, the fears that flared with every word spoken. A flicker of doubt remained, teasing at the edges of his peace. Yet, as he walked into the kitchen, the sight of Sarah kneeling in prayer softened that tension. "Good morning," he offered, his voice still rough with sleep. "Good morning," she replied, looking up with a smile that melted the heaviness in his heart. "How did you sleep?" "Not great," he admitted, tearing a piece of toast. "Too much on my mind." As they unpacked their breakfast, Sarah nodded knowingly. "Let's bring it to him again. Each worry is an invitation to trust more deeply." Together, they held hands, their fingers intertwined as if it sealed their bond in faith. "Lord," Sarah began, her voice steady, "we seek your direction. Please illuminate the path ahead." James added, "Help us to be brave enough to follow, even when it's hard." The stillness of the moment wrapped around them, a sacred cocoon. The clatter of the world outside faded, leaving only a sense of divine warmth, like sunlight filtering through curtains. Later that day, they ventured into town, an excursion that felt more like an exploration of hope than an errand. In the vibrant marketplace, life unfolded around them, colors dancing in the autumn air. As they wandered through stalls of handmade crafts and fresh produce, they encountered familiar faces from their community. Every greeting and smile reminded them of the strength they drew from belonging, believers united in support. Routine seemed to shift as their conversations with friends took on a deeper significance. They shared laughter and stories, but beneath it all, there was a thread of truth connecting them. "We can't be afraid to step out in faith," an older gentleman named Mr. Collins said, leaning over to them. His hands, rough from years of labor, gestured animatedly. "Every step forward is a testament to God's faithfulness in our lives." As the day went on, Sarah felt a sense of urgency growing within her. She pulled James aside, their hearts aligned. "What if we're meant to share our story? Look at how he's worked in our lives already." James frowned slightly, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "But what if it doesn't resonate? What if we fail?" "What if we don't?" Sarah smiled brightly, exuding confidence bolstered by faith. "We may never know until we try." Underneath the growing tension, James began to feel something shift inside him. It was a small, quiet stirring that felt like the whisper of the Holy Spirit, urging him on despite his fear. That evening, after a simple supper, they gathered again for prayer, hearts heavy yet hopeful. "Lord," James whispered, eyes closed, "give us courage. Whatever you need us to do, we will follow." A soft light seemed to fill the room, brightening the shadows, as if heaven itself was watching over them. Sarah glanced up, sensing the presence of something greater, the weight of answered prayers lingering. As they opened their eyes, both felt the strong urging to act, to share, to step forward in faith. They didn't have all the answers, but God was asking them to trust Him in the unknown. With their hearts unified in purpose, they closed their eyes once more, feeling that unmistakable call to dive into the depths of faith, ready to embrace whatever awaited them next. The adventure was just beginning. What revelations would come as they laid bare their hearts? Would they find the guidance they so desperately sought? The divine mystery awaited, and a new chapter loomed on the horizon. The morning sun rose with an unusual intensity, illuminating the modest room where Sarah and James prepared to take the first step on their journey of faith. It was as if the universe conspired to encourage them, wrapping its arms around them in warmth and light. "Are you ready?" Sarah's voice was filled with a blend of excitement and nerves. The air was thick with anticipation, like the moment before a storm that promised to bring change. James nodded, pushing away lingering doubts. He took a deep breath, reminding himself of the prayer they'd shared the night before. It ignited something within him, a flicker of resolve. "Let's do this, together." With their hearts beating in unison, they walked outside hand in hand. The streets of their small town felt alive with possibilities, an open book waiting for them to fill its pages. As they approached the community center where they planned to share their story, hesitant thoughts wove through James's mind. What if no one comes? What if we aren't good enough? But just as quickly, he felt Sarah's reassuring grip. It tethered him, grounding him in the present. Remember, this isn't just about us. It's about Him. Inside, the community center buzzed with an ever-growing crowd of familiar faces. Chairs were arranged in a semicircle, and a small stage stood in the front, waiting for them to step into the light. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee permeated the air, mingling with the sound of warm laughter and gentle chatter. Each face they recognized only fueled the fire in their hearts. With every minute that passed, Sarah whispered affirmations. "We belong here. We are loved. We are here to share. Her confidence was contagious, sparking James's courage. When it was finally time, they ascended the stage, hearts pounding, palms beginning to sweat. The moment stretched and shimmered, filled with the sacred tension of vulnerability. As they looked out into the sea of smiling faces, the world fell silent. Sarah stepped forward, her voice steady yet warm. We want to share what God has done in our lives. Our story isn't perfect, but it's real, and it's alive. James joined in, emboldened. Each trial drew us closer to Him. Each doubt turned into faith, and through it all, we learned that God is always at work, even when we can't see it. As they began to unravel their journey, sharing struggles, triumphs, and their intimate conversations with God, something remarkable happened. The faces of the audience shifted from eager anticipation to rapt attention, each person leaning in closer. It felt like a divine connection formed in that space, binding them together. Moments turned into stories, and stories into testimonies. As they spoke of God's faithfulness, the atmosphere thickened with the presence of the Holy Spirit. Tears glistened in the eyes of listeners, some nodding in agreement, others whispering soft amens. A comforting wave of unity enveloped the room. Faith grows in community, Sarah reminded everyone. Our journeys are intertwined. When one of us falters, the others lift us up. James felt a rush of relief wash over him. As they opened their hearts, they were met with responses of thanks, a collective gratitude that transcended mere words. It was as if their vulnerability had unlocked a door to shared experiences, igniting sparks of hope in those who had come. But just as they began to feel the sweetness of sharing, a question hung in the air, unasked yet palpable. What next? Their journey had just started, but what path lay ahead? As the session drew to a close, an angelic hush fell over the crowd, a sacred moment waiting to reveal what God had in store for them. What steps would they take after this gathering? Would they embrace the emerging call to expand their message beyond these four walls? The next chapter of their journey shimmered, unfurling like a blessed scroll, ripe with potential. As silence filled the community center, Sarah and James stood together, hearts racing, sensing that something profound was about to unfold. The warmth of shared faith enveloped them. Each face, each heartbeat pulsed with anticipation, as if the very air crackled with divine energy. Suddenly, a familiar voice broke the stillness. Let's not let this moment slip away. It was Pastor Mark, emerging from the back, his gaze radiant with encouragement. God has a purpose for each of us. Our stories don't just belong to us alone. They belong to our community, our church. Let's share those stories. Let's inspire one another. The room nodded, a chorus of murmurs in agreement. James and Sarah exchanged a glance, understanding what was being asked of them. This was just the beginning. They could feel the call to dive deeper, not just for themselves, but for those present. The pastor continued, "Let's start a group, an intimate gathering where we share our journeys and pray for one another. It can be a space of healing, transformation, and divine fellowship." A gentle thrill surged through Sarah. Could this be the next step they were meant to take? Where vulnerability turned into strength? Where stories became testimonies and tests became testimonies of triumph? "I like that idea," she said, facing the crowd. "A place where we can bare our hearts and listen and let God weave our lives together." James felt the excitement like a soft beacon igniting his spirit. What if we meet weekly or bi-weekly? We could structure it around scriptures and invite prayer requests. Let's share burdens and celebrate victories. Our journey has shown us that we grow stronger together. The crowd erupted into applause. Encouragement sparkled in the air. Excited voices chimed in, sharing their hopes for what this gathering could become. Some shared their struggles, their dreams. Others offered insights or volunteered to help. James couldn't help but feel the weight of community forming around them, a tapestry crafted by the hands of a loving God. But even amidst the joy, a shadow of uncertainty loomed. A quiet voice in the back of his mind reminded him, what if it fails? What if they don't come? What if hardships push them apart instead of bringing them together? Yet before those queries could take root, Sarah's voice cut through the noise. Remember, it's not ours to control. These stories are for Him. If even one heart is touched, then it's all worth it. A ripple of faith spread through the assembly, a reminder that God could work miracles in seemingly impossible circumstances. Joyous laughter echoed, and hands were raised as participants volunteered to bring in snacks, lead prayers, and even offer their homes for small group meetings. Over the next few weeks, their gatherings blossomed like wildflowers in spring. Each meeting became richer, a haven where stories flowed freely and forgiveness met healing. Yet with every shared moment, a pressing question lingered in the background. While Sarah sensed a direction, James felt the weight of their emerging responsibility. What if God wanted them to extend this beyond their town? What if the stories could reach farther? As they wrapped up each meeting with prayer, James often found himself asking in silent fervor, what does He truly desire from us? How far are we meant to go? On one particularly vibrant evening, as they prayed under an indigo sky filled with bright stars, Sarah turned to him, eyes shining. I feel like we're on the brink of something greater, James. Are we ready for whatever comes next? His heart raced at her words, filled with both hope and trepidation. He knew deep down that something monumental was about to reveal itself. He took her hand, needing her strength, needing the assurance that they wouldn't wander alone. Regardless of the uncertainty that looms, we must trust the journey, he whispered. As the stars glittered above them like possibilities waiting to be discovered, they pondered what awaited them beyond their newfound community. The heavens seemed to beckon, whispering of unexplored paths. But what lay ahead? A call to greatness or a test of will? The night was just beginning to unveil its mysteries. Under the watchful gaze of the stars, Sarah and James embraced that moment, their hearts intertwined with the hope of what was yet to come. Each day unfurled like a new page, inviting them to trust in the divine plan shaping their lives. As the weeks turned into months, the gatherings infused the community with a newfound vibrancy. Discussions became more profound, faith deepened, and friendships grew, sewing a tapestry of love that connected everyone present. Every meeting was a mosaic of laughter and tears as attendees unleashed their burdens while witnessing miracles of healing unraveling before their eyes. One evening, as they gathered in a cozy living room adorned with flickering candles, Sarah spoke, her voice bold yet gentle. What if we included a mission, something that connects us to the larger world beyond these walls? James furrowed his brow in contemplation. A mission? You mean where we actively reach out and serve others? Yes, she replied, joy radiating from her. Each of our stories has power. What if we shared our experiences with those who feel lost? Everyone has a story, but many don't know how to share theirs. We could guide them. Excitement pulsed through the group. They began brainstorming ideas, a food drive for the needy, visits to nursing homes, or even a community cleanup. Every suggestion sparked enthusiasm and broad smiles, igniting a passion to be conduits of change. One participant, Ben, stood up, his hands trembling slightly. I struggled for so long to find my way back to faith. I thought I couldn't be part of something so beautiful. His voice wavered. This could really touch those still wandering. The room fell silent, each member reflecting on Ben's words, realizing that their efforts extended beyond what they initially imagined. James felt his heart swell with purpose. It wasn't solely about their own experiences. It was about serving as beacons of hope. They were the hand that would reach out and pull others into the fold of Christ's love. That night, as they committed to beginning their service projects, a profound warmth enveloped them, a nudge from the Holy Spirit assuring them they were on the right path. The anticipation swirled once more, charging the air with possibilities. But in the brightness of the moment, shadows of doubt crept in. Would they have enough resources? What if they faced rejection? What if they ventured too far too soon? Yet again, Sarah's vibrant spirit cut through his anxieties. James, we're not acting alone. This is His work, not ours. Trust has brought us this far. James felt renewed strength surge through him. He couldn't deny that together they were building something much bigger than themselves. It was like watching the dawn break after a long night, the promise of another chance, the brilliance of light fading away darkness. As the community gathered every week, sharing laughter, struggles, and plans, James often revisited his silent question from before. What does He truly desire from us? He felt in the depths of his soul that they were on the verge of a revelation, an unveiling of God's plan rooted deeper than any of them could yet grasp. Then came a moment that would forever change them. One day, as they prayed for guidance, a voice echoed softly in James's heart, resounding like a gentle whisper. Prepare for expansion. The harvest is ready. Your stories will create ripples far beyond your reach. With that, excitement surged through James. What could it mean? Visions of distant towns and new faces filled his mind. But how? Could they truly embark on this broader calling? He turned to Sarah, whose eyes sparkled with curiosity and divine expectancy. Are we brave enough to follow this path, to answer His call beyond our comfort zone? Silence fell as everyone waited, as if in stillness the answer would unfold. In that sacred pause, with hearts collectively aligned, they recognized the journey had only just begun. Courage was needed, faith would guide them, and the unknown loomed ahead, like an open door to this divine adventure. What awaited them beyond the threshold? Would they rise together, or would fear cast a shadow upon their mission? They couldn't help but wonder what new revelations awaited on the horizon. As dawn broke the following day, a warm light spilled into James's room, stirring him gently from his slumber. He sat up, a sense of anticipation buzzing within him. Today was to be the day they began their mission. The air felt thick with potential, an electric buzz that danced through the stillness of the morning. Gathering his thoughts, James began to pray, asking for guidance and clarity. "Lord," he whispered, "show me the first step. How do we begin this journey You've set before us?" The morning light swelled around him, and he felt a sense of peace wash over him, as if the heavens themselves were leaning in, listening. Later at their meeting, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement and nervous energy. Everyone arrived with ideas and challenges fresh in their hearts, and the air was filled with the aroma of fresh coffee and pastries, simple treasures for a divine task. Sarah looked around, her presence radiating warmth. "Let's start by planning our first outreach," she began, her voice steady. "Maybe we could organize a food drive for next month. We could set up collection points at local businesses." Nods and murmurs of agreement rippled through the room, but one voice rose above the others. "What if we invited those in need to share a meal with us?" It was Lydia, a quieter member of the group, her cheeks flushing with excitement. "We can create a space where they feel loved and valued, a real community." James's heart leapt. A meal. It was simple but powerful. They would not just give, but also gather, share stories, and offer connection. He envisioned tables filled with food, laughter ringing through the air, the joy of fellowship breaking down barriers. "That's a beautiful idea, Lydia," he said, sensing the spirit igniting in the moment. As they began to flesh out details, Ben stood up again, a fire in his eyes. "I can help spread the word, My old friends still in the neighborhood, they could use this too."
"Wonderful," Sarah replied, clapping her hands together. "Each of us has connections. We're stronger together." They worked tirelessly, their spirits rising with each new contribution. Ideas flowed, plans formed, and doubts slowly dissipated under the weight of shared hope. With each discussion, they became more grounded in purpose. Yet, as the week unfolded, the old shadows of doubt crept back into James's mind. He feared they might not reach enough people, the very thought causing his heart to race. When the outpouring of concern washed over him, he could feel disappointment pulling him down. But each time, a gentle reminder from that morning's prayer urged him on, reminding him that this was God's mission, not solely theirs. They met again as the date for the food drive approached. Together, they decorated the community center, turning it into a welcoming space. The air smelled of baked goods, and laughter mingled with the scent of fresh flowers surrounding their gathering spot. On the day of the meal, the atmosphere buzzed with life. Guests began to filter in, faces both familiar and new. James watched as kindness flowed like a river among laughter and shared stories. Each encounter fed a deeper connection, a reminder of the God they served. Yet, in the midst of joy, James felt a stirring in his heart, a whisper from the Spirit that left him both uneasy and invigorated. What lay ahead was not just about serving, but about a transformation yet to be discovered in each one, including him. As he took a moment to survey the scene filled with hope, a realization dawned on him. This was merely the beginning of something much greater. What might this expansion entail? With every soul gathered around the laughter and love, how far could their reach truly go? Would they truly be conduits of his love, stretching into places they had never imagined? A deep excitement rose within him. It was a question that lay just beyond tomorrow, waiting to unveil its mysteries. As the warmth of connection enveloped the community center like a soft embrace, James felt the thrill of life dancing in the air. A mixture of laughter, chatter, and the clattering of utensils created a symphony that resonated with the very heartbeats of those gathered. It was not just a meal, it was a celebration of unity, a tapestry woven with the threads of shared experiences and the simple act of being together. "I can't believe how many people showed up," Ben exclaimed, his eyes wide with wonder. He stood near the doorway, visibly moved as familiar faces he thought he might never see again strolled in. Each one carried stories, burdens, and hopes. "You see?" Lydia smiled, her face beaming with joy. "This is what it's all about, everyone gathering as one family." James caught the infectious spirit in Lydia's eyes. There was a light there, a flame that seemed to dance with purpose. He marveled at how, in such simple moments, God could spark an extraordinary movement of kindness and compassion. The thought made his heart race. As he moved among the tables, placing a hand on the shoulders of those he knew and knew no longer, he began to feel a deeper calling. Perhaps this moment was not just about this meal. Was it a rehearsal for something grander? A divine plan that would unveil itself in layers over time. In the midst of the festivities, he overheard snippets of conversations that wove through the air, and he paused at a table where a group of children shared their stories. They laughed, some giggling so hard they nearly fell from their seats. "Next time, can we have pizza?" one declared, "and maybe ice cream for dessert?" James chuckled, his heart swelling. Such innocence! Here was a glimpse of hope, a future built on laughter, friendship, and connection. But a flicker of worry still danced at the edge of his mind. What if they didn't continue this good work? What if this was just a fleeting moment, a spark that faded when the meal was done? He shook his head, dismissing the thoughts, and glanced toward Sarah, who was busy serving desserts. Her eyes sparkled with the pure joy of service, and in that moment he knew. They had created something tangible, something that could last beyond this gathering. "James," Sarah called, breaking into his thoughts, "come help with the dining area." He nodded and rushed over, eager to contribute. As he moved, he sensed the Spirit nudging him, urging him to look deeper, to consider the ripples they were making. Sometimes the most profound shifts began with the tiniest actions. "Let's make a commitment," he suggested to the group during a lull in the day's activities. "Let's not let this be a one-time meal. What if we did this regularly? A monthly gathering to celebrate, share, and uplift one another." A hush fell over the group. Eyes met, and after a moment's pause, Lydia chimed in. "I love that idea. It could even grow into a community outreach program." Excitement erupted anew. Voices rose in a flurry of ideas, maps drawn in the air with their hands, visions expanding like the wings of a dove. James felt the energy shift. It was as if the Spirit was swirling around them, knitting their hearts closer together. Yet through all the joy, an unsettled sensation kept bubbling to the surface. What was the purpose behind this course they were charting? As their plan solidified into a tangible dream, his heart trembled with the deeper implications. Could they be ready for such a mission? The whispers remained, inviting further contemplation. If they truly stepped into this calling, what would it mean for their individual lives? With anticipation racing in tandem with his heart, James understood. This wasn't merely about giving, it was about growing, a divine expansion they had only begun to witness. What might this journey reveal about themselves?
The question echoed in his mind, resonating with truth. They were on the brink of something wonderful, but only time would unfold the depth of this blessing, and every step would take courage. As night began to close in, the glow of their mission shimmered brightly ahead. What awaited them on this path of divine discovery? Where would it lead them next? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden hue across the gathering, Sarah and James stood side by side in the brightly lit community center, their hearts dancing with excitement. The laughter, the stories, and the love that filled the room were more than just moments. They were manifestations of God's glory unfolding. Amidst the clatter of plates and the joy of shared meals, they felt it, a divine alignment, a connection that stretched far beyond them. As the last guests lingered, James stood before the crowd, heart pounding with purpose. "We've started something beautiful here," he began, his voice steady yet heartfelt. "But this is just the beginning. God has called us to reach further, to create ripples of change that will touch lives beyond our own. Are you ready to step into this mission together?" An overwhelming shout of agreement filled the air. Cheers erupted, and for each amen, James felt a surge of hope coursing through him. It was in that moment he realized this was not just about them. It was about the collective heart of faith woven together, amplified in strength. Days turned into weeks, and the gatherings grew not just in numbers, but in impact. Through homemade meals, community services, and prayer meetings, they reached those who were lost and lonely. Over time, faces once filled with despair began to shine with joy, reflecting the transformative power of love in action. James and Sarah became instrumental in this heartbeat of unity. They were more than leaders, they were servants. Each shared meal, every prayer request, and all the moments of vulnerability connected them to something divine. The hand of God guided them to new places, igniting young and old alike to join the movement. A month later, as the community gathered under twinkling lights for a monthly celebration, Sarah took the stage with renewed confidence. "We've witnessed miracles together," she proclaimed, her voice reaching each heart in the room. "Through each other, we've found hope. God is moving through us." The applause enveloped her, but she remained focused on the message pulsating within. But as they embraced this moment, uncertainties lingered. Fear still whispered doubts. Would the momentum continue? Could they sustain this community? Yet in these moments of hesitation, they leaned heavily into prayer. Each plea sent heavenward birthed clarity, a newfound assurance that they weren't acting alone. One evening, as they knelt in prayer, a surge of inspiration swept through the group. They felt called to extend their mission beyond local borders.
What if they could support neighboring towns? This idea birthed enthusiasm, electrifying the air as they rallied together, crafting plans to take their outreach into uncharted territories. Weeks passed, and as they initiated their first cross-community drive, the gathering sparkled with hope. Banners waved, joyous voices echoed, and together they made an indelible mark on the world, showing that love transcends distance. Yet, beneath the excitement, James was often reminded of the fragility of their journey. He had witnessed the deep-seated struggles of faith, personal as well as communal. He understood that this mission required more than just action. It required a heart continually surrendered to God's will. During one late-night conversation with Sarah, he whispered, "We've come so far, but I still worry." Her hand squeezed his tightly, reassurance flowing like a river. "What if he's just getting started?" she smiled knowingly. "In our weakness, his strength is made perfect. We're not in charge of what comes next. That's his domain." Those words settled into his spirit, igniting rekindled hope. It was never about their power, it was about surrendering to the one who can do immeasurably more than they could ask or imagine. As they ventured forth, weaving their tapestry of service, they felt the hand of God upon them, pouring forth blessings and stirrings of faith. And as the community movement expanded, James realized one undeniable truth. Transformation occurs not solely through grand gestures, but in the sacred union of hearts committed to serve. The journey brought challenges, but each struggle brought strength, answers to prayers they hadn't even voiced. They began to encounter miracles of reconciliation, paths of healing that they never anticipated. God's love was bursting forth like rivers flowing from a dam, sweeping through their community, washing away doubt. Months later, at a bustling gathering filled with laughter, recognition flooded James. They had become a beacon of light, guiding fellow travelers home. The tears of pain transformed into tears of joy. Hearts once burdened now overflowed with gratitude. As he watched Sarah embrace those who were once strangers, and friends and family support each other, he felt gratitude for the calling they had embraced. Then came the day when they received a note, a simple invitation to speak at a larger regional gathering about their journey. Heart racing, James and Sarah looked at each other in awe. Could this be the next step? "Yes," Sarah exclaimed, her eyes shining with courage and determination. "We must share this, so others can see what God has done through us. It's not just our story, it's His story." But day approached, and as they stood before a new audience, the energy was palpable. With trembling bravado, they shared their events, their struggles, their overwhelming victories, grounding every narrative in faith, and each testimony a celebration of a loving God who equips His children. As they finished speaking that day, the room erupted into applause, not just for their words, but for the hope that reverberated through every testimony shared. And in that moment, as they felt the warmth of God's embrace, James whispered a prayer of thanks. They had discovered that the 7 divine steps had led to a journey of faith designed to reveal God's glory in ways they never expected. Each step was an act of obedience, each story a testament to the beauty of surrendering to His will. Deep within their hearts, they undid the chains of uncertainty, embracing instead a path paved with purpose. And it was this, in every ounce of faith, in every moment of vulnerability, that they found their calling, not just as individuals, but as a community woven together by love. The journey was not perfect. Difficulties would surely arise, but together they would face whatever came next, knowing they were supported by a divine foundation. Their story would continue, echoing hope, igniting purpose, and illuminating paths for those yet to encounter this heartwarming light. James and Sarah stood at the edge of something truly extraordinary, a divine adventure birthed through faithfulness, love, and unwavering trust. And as they served, they would continue to inspire, leading others to join them on this transcendent journey toward the heart of God. So, dear friends, I call you to act. You need to subscribe now to our channel so you won't miss any exclusive faith stories that could change your life. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like right now to feed the algorithm, and together let's spread this message of hope. Comment your reactions and testimonies about this divine ending, and share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this manifestation. Let us embrace this calling together. Don't wait even one more second to make a difference for those who need to hear this truth.